Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel Bio-Microbio-Logy. Today's topic is fertilization of plants. In this video, we are going to discuss various things related to plant fertilization like reproduction in plants, structure of flower, how fertilization occurs in plants and the types of fertilization it is. The reproduction in plants. Plants have evolved some reproductive strategies for the continuation of their species. Some plants reproduce sexually, while others reproduce asexually. In contrast to animal species, those reproduced bisexually. Sexual reproduction of plants usually depends on some pollinating agents, while asexual reproduction of plants occurs by vegetative reproduction without the formation of any gametes. Most of the flowering plants or Angiosperm mainly reproduce bisexually. Now we are coming to the sexual reproduction in plants. The flower is the main reproductive part of plant where both male and female gametes are produced within the flower. All plants having some reciprocal structures for sexual reproduction. The main function of a flower is to produce seeds through sexual reproduction. A complete flower typically consists of 4 parts like petals, sepals, stamen, pistil or carpel. Here it's showing the structure of flower where it consists of both male and female reproductive tract together. The male reproductive part called stamen is also called androcium and it contains a tube-like structure which holds anther, a bilobe-like structure that produces and stores the pollen grains in the sac. Now we are coming to the pistil, the female reproductive part, also called gynosium, which consists a uppermost structure called stigma, where pollens are deposited and that's connected with a long pipe structure called style. An ovary situated at the base. The ovary consists of many ovules that helps in the formation of seeds. Each ovule having a tiny opening at the tip called micropyle. The ovule contains the embryo sac where a nucleate stage is seen as a result of meiosis, and those are 2 synergid cells with 1 egg cells and 3 antibodal cells located at the opposite end and 2 polar nucleus cells present in the central of embryo sac. Next, we're gonna discuss the sexual reproduction of plants and how fertilization takes place in a mature flower of the plant. So, fertilization is a process of creating new offspring by the fusion of male and female gametes to form a diploid zygote. This is the basic definition for all the reproductive organisms of plants. In plants, fertilization is a process of sexual reproduction where both male gametes or pollen and female gametes or ovum fuse to form a diploid zygote, which occurs after the pollination and germination. Pollination carried out by insects, birds and animals. Sometimes pollination occurs via wind or water by itself. The figure is showing the pollination is carried out by insect and anther disperses the pollen grains which are attached to the legs of insects and thus it helps in pollination. Now we are coming to the basic events of fertilization process. In flower, the pollen grains germinate after the pollination of the carpel and it grows into the style by creating a pathway for the movement of pollen grains towards the ovary, and that's called pollen tube. The pollen tube opens into the ovule through the micropyle, bursts into embryo sac. Here the male nucleus come in contact with the egg nucleus present inside the ovule that results in the formation of a diploid zygote which later develops into a seed. Types of fertilization. Basically, plant fertilization process are 3 types, classified based on the entry of pollen tube into the ovule. Porogamy, it's a common type of fertilization, occurs in all angiosperm or flowering plants where the pollen tube enters into the ovule through micropyle. Chalojogamy, in this type of fertilization process, the pollen tube enters into the ovule through the pollen tube itself. Mesogamy, in this type of fertilization, the pollen tube enters into the ovule through the middle part of the ovule. In flowering plant or angiosperm, reproduction is accomplished by a complex fertilization process or more precisely called double fertilization. So, what is double fertilization? Double fertilization is a complex fertilization process in which the fusion occurs between one female gametophyte with 2 male gametophytes. In the double fertilization process, among the 2 sperm cells, one sperm cell fuses with the egg and other sperm cell fuses with 2 polar nuclei inside of embryo sac. In angiosperms, 2 structure is formed as a result of fertilization, are a diploid zygote and another is diploid endosperm. Hence, the fertilization is called double fertilization. Now we are going to discuss how actually the fertilization occurs in plants. So let's start from the very first. When pollens are deposited on stigma through pollination, it must need to germinate and grow through the style to reach ovule. A pollen contains two cells, the pollen tube cell and generative cell. The pollen tube cell grows through the pollen tube where generative cell moves towards the ovary, and the growth of pollen tube is supported by the surrounding tissues of the style. The germination of the pollen tube requires some oxygen, water and some chemical signal. During germination of the generative cell divides to form two sperm cells. The growth of the pollen tube is influenced by the chemicals secreted by synergid cells present in the embryo sac. Then it enters the ovule through the micropyle. Among the two sperm cells, one sperm fertilizes the egg cell, forming a diploid zygote 2N, and other sperm fuses with other two polar nuclei, forming a diploid cell 3N that develops into an endosperm. And the fertilized ovule forms the seed, whereas the tissues of the ovary becomes the fruit that enveloping the seed. Endosperm plays a role in the supplement of nutrients that supports the embryonic growth and protects embryo during the seed development. Together, these two fertilization events in angiosperm are known as double fertilization. The fertilization of angiosperm is schematically represented next. The figure depicts the overall fertilization process in plants, especially in angiosperms. Here we can see the pollen grains after dispersed from anther are landed on the stigma of same or different flower. Then it moves through the pollen tube inside of the style and it germinates to form sperm cells and enters the ovule and fused with two types of cells. Thus the double fertilization is accomplished. That's all for the plant fertilization. Thanks for watching. Subscribe for more.